These cars have been sitting out here for years at this abandoned house, and I've been tasked with getting them out of here. All right, it's cold and we out here in the middle of nowhere, picking up some abandoned vehicles out here. 2 Nissans and a Honda back over there. Don't ask me how I found these vehicles. We found them now. 2 of these cars run, but only 1 of them move, and there's 3 of them out here, so the odds of us driving them right out of here is pretty slim. And we have an infestation. Plus, these cars are really nasty on the inside, so I don't want to sit inside of them for more than 5 seconds. Our 3rd and final car is not too bad on the outside, but it smells god-awful on the inside. Now, since these cars are deep in the woods and they have several issues, I'm getting them for a bargain. And throughout this video, we're going to try to fix them up and see how much of a bargain they really are. Once we got these cars back to the shop, I needed to be able to sit in them and actually breathe. And in their current condition, that was not really possible. Now, all 3 of these cars have been infested with rodents, or at least I'm hoping they were infested with rodents and no longer are. To fix this problem, I had a mobile detailer come out and clean both the Honda and the Nissan 350Z. Now, these cars both have the most potential and most value because unlike the truck, they both run. So here's our beauty of a Honda. As you see, we've been trying to let it air out. And the inside has been transformational. Although the smell still lingers. So it's not as bad to sit in here now, especially when you got a mask on like I do. And it's firing right up now. Well, we got it running. We might as well see how it drives real quick. It stops. That's good. Can barely see through the windshield on this thing. At least there's nothing I know of that's gonna crawl on me in here. You can hear the brakes. Definitely been sitting for a while. The transmission don't shift all that bad. No check engine lights. All right, well, if we could see out the windshield, it'd probably be a decent car. For just being in the woods, I mean, I'm giving it all she got, really. Not really, but you know what? At least out of the 3, 1 of these things drives, and that's probably enough to make the whole trip up there inside the woods, getting these abandoned vehicles out. That probably makes it worth it. The Honda, I expected it to drive. I mean, that's the way these Hondas are. You leave a K24 in the woods for 5 years and you fire that thing back up, baby, it's ready to go. It doesn't matter. But the Nissans, you know, those always let you down. But not this Honda here. Now that we know that this Honda runs, we can concentrate on the underneath and the outside of it. We're going to get the outside cleaned up, and then we're going to bring it in the shop, change the oil and transmission fluid, and while we're at it, we'll look underneath the complete underside, and hopefully we don't find any more problems. I'm pretty pleased with the interior, but it's not done yet. Hopefully we don't find any more surprises in there. And more importantly, hopefully when we raise this thing up, we don't find any surprises. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. With the new year, it can be difficult to handle the expectations to make dramatic, immediate changes that improve your life, or the expectations that come with fixing a dirty old nasty car. It can make you feel like you've made the wrong decision, a bad choice, or if you can't handle your new expectations, it can make you feel like you're being left behind in life. BetterHelp is an online platform full of over 30,000 licensed therapists that can help you with any of these new challenges. So whether you're feeling overwhelmed, mad, sad, glad, whatever it is, BetterHelp can connect you with a licensed therapist that can talk you through all your pain and worries and get you back to feeling like yourself. Kind of like we did with this car here. With over 7,000 reviews on Trustpilot and a 4.5 rating, it's no wonder why so many people have trusted BetterHelp to find the right therapist for them. And even if they don't find the right therapist the first time, it's no worries because BetterHelp makes it easy to switch therapists at any time at no extra cost to you. Simply fill out a questionnaire and BetterHelp will connect you with a licensed therapist in usually as little as 48 hours. Click on the link in the description below or go to betterhelp.com/Eddie to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hopefully I won't have to do that this time. Underneath this thing, it's not looking too bad. There's a little bit of rust under here. Up north, they would call that just some plain old surface rust, so nothing really to worry about. The thing that's impressing me the most is there's no oil or any type of leaks underneath this thing. And we have had it running for a good amount of time. I mean, a good 5 to 10 minutes. So looks like all the seals are holding up. We're gonna change the oil. We got an old oil filter there. Who knows when this oil was changed last. And we're also probably gonna change the transmission fluid as well. There's a little bit of rust under here, and that's primarily the main concern. Looking underneath here, all the suspension components don't look bad, but they are a little rusty. And like I said, the metal's still solid. It's mostly just surface rust, so it's no big deal. A lot of these bolts are rusty, so if anybody ever has to work on this thing, or we do gotta work on it, it's not gonna be the best time. But hey, hopefully we don't have to do much to it. That's my hope on this one. The leaks look good. The oil pan is a little rusty right here, but again, I might be able to just brush it down and paint it. Just some surface rust. Back here, the body looks great. No, not much rust on the body at all. And that's the main thing on these cars, because you can replace the subframe assemblies, the undercarriage, the suspension components, the knuckle. But if this body rusts out, you're just toast. I mean, it's just, the car's done. But all this other stuff that's rusting out, I mean, you can replace transmission bolts, you can replace an oil pan. The tires here are almost at the wear marks on the back. This is a different tire here, but the front tires look good. So we shouldn't need to put tires on it. The other thing we probably should look at is brakes here. We'll have to pull a tire off to do that. And looking this thing over, that bumper back there is a little rusty, but again, still seems mostly solid. We're gonna go ahead and change the oil and the transmission fluid and get this thing serviced up. And I'm hoping, besides brakes and maybe some other small stuff, that's all we gotta do to it. We also put a battery in it. So battery, oil change, and transmission fluid is not too bad after a detail on this thing, especially for a Honda Accord like this thing. These are good running cars, man. Really good running cars. All right. While this Honda was easy to fix and get back on the road, this Nissan 350Z, I'm afraid, will not have the same fate. We already know this car will not move because we had to push it inside for the mobile detailer to clean it, and I'm hoping it just has a bad clutch, and that's all we'll have to do to it. But there is another small worrisome issue. On cold startup, this thing has a little bit of a knock. But we'll worry about that later. All right, so guys, here's the deal. I knew this thing was probably gonna need something transmission related or a clutch. And luckily, it seems like it's just a clutch by looking at the bore scope. Of course, we're not gonna know that fully until we get this transmission out. We make sure everything's good inside of it. We get a good clutch up here. Now I'm gonna go see if I can find a good clutch, get it up here pretty quickly. We're gonna get this unit out, see if we can get this thing back on the road. So as we started tearing the transmission apart, I noticed I had to take the shifter loose from up top. And when we went to go take the trim to get the shifter loose, we found another major problem with this car.
Oh, what is that? Oh, man. Oh, man.
Now, we knew these cars had been infested with rodents, but we didn't know how bad. And this probably means we'll have to go back and look at the Honda one more time to make sure we didn't miss any other rodents' nests that may be hiding. But for now, as always, I'm going to ignore the warning signs and see if I can at least get this Nissan to move under its own power. All right. Now the transmission is free from all that, and then we can get all that cleaned up while we got it exposed. All right, step one of getting the transmission out complete. We spent the next couple hours removing this transmission, which wasn't that hard. It was just a drive shaft, bell housing bolts, and subframe holding this thing in there. And once we wiggled it loose, we could bring it down and expose the actual issue with this car. All right, now that we got the transmission out, we could see what the flywheel looks like. We obviously see all this clutch debris right here, all around the bell housing. You can see it kind of up here. Don't want to breathe that stuff in for sure. We're going to have to clean all that out of there. And we're going to take the pressure plate off here next. And we're going to see what the flywheel looks like. This is a dual mass flywheel, which means one thing only. It's just really expensive. So to get that thing fixed or replaced, it's going to significantly add to the budget if that flywheel is no longer good. We can get it machined, and that's probably what we'll be looking at, but we're going to find that out right now. Well, that clutch is definitely completely gone. You can smell it too. As for this flywheel, doesn't look too great either, huh? So the good news is I found the problem, and it's exactly what I thought it was, a worn out clutch. But the bad news is I have to buy even more parts to get this thing back in working order. It's no wonder this car wouldn't move. It had no clutch material left on this clutch. And not only that, it did some significant damage to our flywheel here, where we had to get a brand new one. These divots are very deep, and I did not want to take a chance in trying to machine a dual mass flywheel. So here we have a brand new dual mass flywheel. Now you can really see how these things damper the clutch engagement. See that little movement right there? That's the reason why they're not so easy to machine, because instead of grabbing the whole ring gear part, you got to grab this part somehow. And I don't know if there's anybody really that can machine these things. So $600 later, we got a Luke dual mass flywheel here for this beautiful Nissan 350Z. Beautiful, we're being a little sarcastic there calling this thing beautiful. It still needs some cleaning on the outside. We're gonna go ahead and slap this flywheel on here, torque everything down, and get this clutch assembly ready to go back in. And then we can go ahead and put our transmission back in. With all the parts that we need here, we went ahead and put the transmission back in, and after a couple hours of work, we were ready to dust our hands off, pat ourselves on the back, and drive our Nissan 350Z. Or so I thought. Okay, a little update on this thing. We checked the oil. Oil's good. Got a little bit of a knock here. It may be like a lifter, could be something else. I'm not sure exactly how these motors are designed, but you can definitely hear it knocking. We got to bleed the clutch. It was a little low on brake fluid and clutch fluid here, so we topped that off. Now we still got to bleed the clutch. We're going to change the oil, and I've got some sea foam running through the motor right now to try to see if we can get that knock to free up a little bit. It's a little concerning, I'm not gonna lie. We just put a good amount of money into this thing. That is not a good sound. Doesn't seem to be getting that much better, but it may. So I already know what you're thinking. Why would you put a clutch in a vehicle that you know may have a motor problem? Well, I didn't exactly know it may have an engine problem. I knew it started up with a knock code, but I thought maybe it was just low on oil and we could get that corrected pretty easily. But I should have known when you're working on a Nissan, you gotta expect everything to be destroyed. Regardless of how this Nissan engine sounded, I still wanted to drive this vehicle to make sure there would be no more surprises later on down the road. All right, let's blow this motor up, right? Actually, it's sounding pretty good now. The knock's kind of gone away. All right, we're going. We're gonna just take it up to the turnaround and come on back down to the shop and see how it sounds once we get back. All right, we're letting it run out here. We're gonna have the mobile detailer come and clean the outside of this thing here momentarily, but we're letting it run until he gets here. Trying to get rid of that knocking, rattling noise coming from the motor. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do anything with it without actually having to replace the motor or do a repair on it, maybe a timing chain or something like that. You could still hear it. It's quieted up a good bit. Maybe we could put some thicker oil in there. maybe some thinner oil, you know. I'm gonna let it run, let it try to get nice and hot, try to get that oil broken down, and maybe it's just got to get some lubrication to it. That's the only thing we can really hope for here. Other than that, we're probably gonna have to replace the entire engine, or like I said, repair the timing chain if that's what's wrong. When I was listening to the noise, it sounded more like it was back on this side of the engine than on the front side of the engine. So, but it has been sitting a while, and you know, we know it hasn't been ran at least since 2021, so that's 4 years. So it could, you know, could have some stuff stuck in there making that noise. If we get in it, just rev it up real quick. So we got 2 running and driving cars as of right now. The only problem is one of them knocks a little bit under the motor, and the other one we still got to check out and make sure there's no more rat's nest hiding anywhere behind panels or somewhere in the HVAC system. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We found it. Another one there. So we're gonna need a cabin air filter. We're also gonna clean all this stuff out of here and make sure it smells nice and good. I've already got the glove box down here. So the cabin air filter goes in there. Now another worrisome thing about this, and what made me kind of think about doing this, is the blower motor does not work in this thing. So when you turn the HVAC on, there's no blower. And thank God, honestly, because if I would have turned that blower motor on and it worked, I would have been straight breathing in rat feces out of these vents. So, and you could still see some right down there. Even though this car is pretty clean, we got to get the source of the smell out of here, or it'll just keep coming back no matter how much we spray air freshener, or no matter how much we'll run the ozone in here. The cabin air filter sits right in here, and I got a mask on because, yeah, that is not clean. Now, after finding this rodent nest inside the HVAC system, I decided to go back and check the Nissan 350Z's HVAC system, and what do you know? Another rat's nest. And while we were at it, we replaced the battery, because I'm still a little hopeful that I can maybe get this thing fixed and back in working order. Well, worst comes to worst, we'll just blow the motor in this one and get another one, or LS swap it. Who knows? All right, let's let it run. Now that this Nissan has a major issue, I'm left with a major decision. Do I continue fixing it and dump more money into it to hopefully get my money back out of it, or do I go ahead and scrap it? And while we're talking about scrapping vehicles, let's take a look at the third vehicle we got out of the woods, this 1990 Nissan pickup. So this is the third and final piece of the abandoned cars from the woods. It's a 1990 Nissan pickup truck. And honestly, I was a little excited about this car until I saw the inside. And the inside is just as torn up as the other two. And I don't think it's worth putting that much effort into, especially if the powertrain system's not good. And when we were out in the woods picking up these cars, this was the only one we weren't able to get started. We sat there and messed with it for a good while too, and that's why it's still here on the trailer. It may not leave the trailer until it goes to the scrapyard, but we're gonna give it one final shot here and see if it's worth fixing. If not, it's gonna stay on the trailer. So underneath the hood is just a 2.4 liter Nissan 4-cylinder. It's got 0 battery power. Let's see if it does anything when we try to crank it. It is pretty nasty in here, but it doesn't smell as bad as the other ones, at least. We actually got it to run on the first train. You see that smoke coming out of there? Well, it runs, but you obviously saw combustion coming out of the radiator there, which means it's got something wrong with the head or it's got a bad head gasket. So, in other words, it needs a motor. Now, this one's probably going to stay here on the truck because, I mean, even though it runs, I don't think it's worth putting a motor in this thing. It ran for a couple seconds. I'm surprised it fired up that quick. It did not do that, but it must have been all the starter fluid that we sprayed in there when we were up there. That's a real quick test. If you ever see that on a car that you have and your radiator cap is just whatever connected to the coolant system, if it's just blowing out smoke or combustion or it's got pressure coming out of it while the engine's running, that means that head gasket or something in the head is leaking over combustion into the coolant system, into the coolant jackets, and it's coming out of the radiator. So this motor's toast. I mean, it runs, but it obviously, I mean, you obviously saw it didn't run long. And even if we got it to run long, it's not gonna stay cool because it's gonna leak all that combustion over into the coolant system. It's gonna burn the coolant, and then eventually it's just gonna get hot and burn up the rest of the motor. What do we think? I mean, it hadn't been on the road since 2020, so it's a COVID mobile. What's the most you can? It's a manual. It's two-wheel drive. It's not even four-wheel drive. You can tell that because it don't have the old locking hubs. The frame is in okay shape. You come back here, you look at the frame here. And it's in okay shape. I mean, it's got some surface rust, but it's still solid. Much more solid than my Chevy frame over there. It's got the cover on the back. But again, it's only two-wheel drive. It's a 4-cylinder, and it's a manual. So it's really just a trash truck. That's the most you're going to get out of this thing, really. I mean, who else is going to buy it unless you're desperate for wheels or you just need a truck to haul some trash in? They don't make trucks like this anymore. This is kind of like the Pizza Planet truck. You know, we could paint it yellow, get a Buzz Year and a Woody to hang off of it. But I mean, they don't make trucks that well like this anymore. I mean, nice little. I mean, I guess they still make the Frontiers, and I guess they still make them in manuals, but they're not like this. They're not nice little square bodies. These trucks are tough and durable. I mean, I'm in a conundrum because I don't know which way to go. We'll figure it out. It's a shame, man. That's a nice truck. It's not a bad looking one either. I mean, I may fix it, I may not. It's a lot of money to put in a truck that's just going to be a trash truck for somebody. But these other two, this Honda Accord, these are great cars. It's exactly what I would expect out of a Honda you find in the woods. It's a little dirty, it's a little nasty, but you fire it up and it still runs and drives. Just needs a fresh oil change that transmission fluid, and this thing will never die. Now, this thing is probably going to find a new home very soon, and we're going to continue to make sure everything is good on it. Oh, Honda, oh, reliable. Now we got this Nissan 350Z here, and I can tell you one thing about this car I know for a fact. Somebody ran the crap out of this thing. It's got a knock in the motor, and I probably should have, worried about that before I put a clutch in it, but the clutch was non-existent, so I had no idea if the transmission was good, the transmission was bad. It was just a thin plate where the clutch should be. So the transmission's good. The rear end's good, it drives, the suspension and the brakes and everything else seem good. It's just got a little bit of a knock in the motor, really only at about 2,000 RPMs. We're gonna see what we can do to fix that, and if we can't fix it, we're just gonna run the crap out of it until it throws a rod and sticks in the asphalt. So if you wanna see that happen, look out for a video called, I'm gonna run this knocking motor until it blows. Look out for that video. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can email me if you have any questions. Just call me Eddie1 at gmail.com. Until next time, stay dirty.